Y10K fractured. Chapter 3. Morlock Antron XII was dead. The King Antron I hall of the Grand Courthouse was a glittering, imposing chamber. Peers of the realm, arrayed in their finest, filled the two galleries reserved. The lower court gallery was the more crowded, packed with minor nobles, while the grand court gallery consisted mainly of the 7 highest courtiers in the kingdom and their immediate families. The person's attention shifted to the grand court gallery. There seemed to be something of a stir going on among some of the people there. Judging by who was agitated, there was likely trouble. Meantime, the ceremony reached its climax. The observer tuned back into the ceremony. They had seen any number of these ceremonies at this point, but not one like this. This one was special. This was the moment the history of Artrix began to turn. To the southern districts I give you Taurus, your undisputed king. To the eastern districts I give you Taurus, your undisputed king. Sandrum, Lord Aramithnica, swept up the crown of Centrania from its plush cushion. He poised it over the bowed head of His Majesty King Taurus. Sandrum began reciting the litany of titles and royal styles bound to the crown as it was lowered on to King Taurus' head. King Taurus stood up and took up the scepter and whip of office from their cushions and paused. Thus begins the 79th dynasty of Centrania on the Renarma, and the reign of the House of Ambrus, Santron declared, as the new king turned to face the courtroom at large. The person in the peasants' gallery was not the only one to notice the stir. Newly crowned King Taurus turned to face the audience. Taurus caught the whispers at once. He had been too nervous to notice during his entry. Now he had his focus back. The program wasn't over. His co-regent still had to be installed, his 21-year-old son Prince Gabriel, along with their wives, Amintressa, Taurus's wife, and Princess Waterlily, Gabriel's wife. What is going on in the grand court gallery? Taurus murmured to Santron discreetly. Who can say, Majesty? I would venture some manner of plotting. Santron replied, equally discreet. Find out exactly, Taurus ordered in a quiet murmur as the applause died down across the galleries. As your Majesty commands, Santron replied and stepped back so Taurus could carry on the ceremonies and bring them to their proper conclusion. It dragged on for another interminable hour. We will receive visitors in chambers starting within the next half hour. For those with business with us, you are welcome to request audience. For the rest, you may go with our blessing upon you, Taurus said, and there was a briefer spattering of applause as people hurriedly began to vacate the chamber. It was a cold, early winter day. The sky threatened heavy snowfall. The ceremony had gone forward only because the Renarmo had not yet frozen. After today, that would likely change. When the river closed, travel would cease entirely. Flight already had. Upper-level winds already howled with gale force, enough to hurl a stallion to the ground if the cold did not take him first. For now, the river was the only viable means of travel. Taurus moved from the dais into the passage leading to his cabinet suite. On the desk inside was a stack of paperwork nearly a foot tall. Taurus sighed. Amintressa, Gabriel, and Waterlily returned to the palace to begin the festivities. The court clerks are quite efficient, are they not? Ah, Captain Porthos. Just the stallion I wish to see, Santron said with satisfaction as the diminutive but powerfully built stallion approached. Porthos cocked his head, which barely reached Santron's chest. What do you wish to see me for, my lord? Porthos asked quietly. His gaze was deceptively placid, as was his tone. His Majesty requests you determine what was going on during the ceremonies, Santron replied with equal calm. If I heard correctly from Lord Olorusny's security retinue, he is planning a rapid departure. He also summoned several others to Olorusny. He named Lords Alterian, Illyry, Mornicus, and Lormara, Porthos said as they entered a small law library. Truly, Sandron cocked an eyebrow at Porthos. Yes, my lord Aramithica. I found no one who knew why he would command the presence of those four men. As to his urgency, I would venture that it is likely weather-related. Porthos shrugged, declining a small glass of cognac. Investigate and see what you can learn about why Lord Olorusny wants those four men to attend him, Santron replied and sniffed his glass of liquor before sampling it. What brings you here, by the by? I would have thought you would be on your way back to the palace. I intended to address my position as left hand of the king. I was also going to speak with him regarding what his late majesty had in the works. Santron had to force himself to pause before speaking again. You think it unwise? Porthos turned from the window. His Majesty is reviewing the late king's papers. There is much to absorb. Questions will follow. Santron saw Porthos consider this, nod quietly. You place me on guard. You have my thanks, my lord, Porthos said, and glanced out the window as the lights flickered. They've improved at keeping the power steady, Porthos observed quietly. It takes stronger winds to make them flicker now. From the look of it out there, Santron said, it is only going to get worse before the day is out. Agreed. Is His Majesty receiving visitors now? Orion hated this place. Nobody had to tell him how evil his company was. Orion and Pegasus had been brought to Olorusny for their mind powers. Most people in the kingdom lived without using their abilities or learned to suppress them. Orion and Pegasus, by contrast, possessed unusually strong talents for peasants. They had proven useful to Java. That was why he was here, with Ericor, a man so devoted to cruelty he seemed to relish hurting others, or worse, making them hurt themselves. Orion had been taken from one crumbling part of Olorusny Manor to the next. He was forced to use his power to reconstruct rooms and objects as they had once been. Orion could touch an object, or even a wall, and reveal what it had looked like at any point in its existence. His sister, Pegasus, was able to read any written language presented to her after a single exposure. What Java had her doing, beyond reading, was a mystery to Orion. It had been this way for decades. A new dynasty was beginning, and Orion wasn't stupid. There would be upheaval in the kingdom and in the court. If there was ever a time to move, it would be soon, while the court was still settling. But how to deal with the Sarlacc Ericor? Aprician, lord of Alturian district, watched the snow cascade past the window of his coach as they left the courthouse. Aprician sat opposite his traveling companions, Mitnon, Lord Mornicus, and Firestar, Lord Larmara. They were bound for the river portage at County Creekwood, the nearest docking point for passenger vessels and private yachts. From the palace, it was a brief ride. From the courthouse, it was a miserable half hour through rutted roads turning to slush. The only sound was snow striking the leather window covers. So what think you about Java's summons in the middle of a coronation? Mitnar asked bluntly, making Aprician wish he had left the window open. Java, a supporter of the royal house only when it served his purposes, was expressing disdain for the new king. He had despised Morlik Antron XII and Antron XI before him, one for defiance, the other for instability. Bloodline differences mattered little. Both had been ungovernable. Now it seemed young King Taurus was to inherit the same hatred. I think your cousin is risking unwanted attention and an invitation to the palace for a cup of wine if he is not careful. Aprician finally ventured to Mitnar and got a contemptuous snort from Firestar. He simply demanded our presence without explanation. I, for one, would like to know what he is in such an uproar over. It is not like Java to take such a risk. Who can know with Java? Firestar grumbled in irritation. Firestar was having some family problems recently, most notably the recent death of his eldest son as a result of disease, leaving only one remaining heir by the name of Marcus. I note you have sent Ayeshla home, Mitnar observed, for various reasons. Patrician didn't deign to offer deeper details. Mitnar didn't press. Firestar snorted again. I hope you will not be offended that I took a cue from you, Mitnar said after a few moments. I sent Titiana home as well. I had no desire to send my wife to the palace for the banqueting there, nor did I want her in Olorusny with us. You expect trouble? Patrician was surprised to hear this from Mitnar. My cousin does not confide all things to me these days. Who can know what Java is up to? Many in the family think he is beginning to slip early, Mitnar replied. The coach approached the pierhead and pulled to a halt. The coachman opened the door under the covered area and let them out. The snowfall had become a blizzard and was especially loud under the canopy leading to the brightly lit riverboat. Aprician paused, momentarily disoriented by the sudden light, especially after the darkness of the coach ride. What manner of craft is this? Mitnar asked. The vessel was broad, low in the water, with four stacked decks, massive paddle wheels, like mill wheels, turning along either side. It is quite large, Aprician noted. Firestar, what has that cousin of yours been up to this time? It looks much like that paddle boat idea Arlen was working on several months back. Morlik had apparently approved it, Firestar said sourly. If so, the wheels are powered by animals. They will move the boat down the river much faster than otherwise. Arlen claims it will cut at least a day off the trip south and 12 hours off the northbound trip. You do not sound particularly proud, or even as if you believe your cousin has accomplished what he said, Patrician said. They walked up the pier toward the open, waving hatch in the warm pool of light. Firestar simply snorted irritably. Arlen is always making trouble, Firestar grumbled. To Aprician, Arlen was responsible for Lamar's remaining reputation. Firestar certainly was not. Arlan, Count Axia, stood in the main lounge of his newest creation speaking with Lycros, Lord of Illyry District, when a steward approached. Yes, Arlen asked the youth in his white jacket and dark slacks, likely the finest clothes the fellow had ever worn. Lords Alterian, Mornicus, and Lamara have boarded. Lord Alterian has booked into the grand parlor suite on deck 3, the youth murmured into Arlen's cocked ear. Truly? Yes, my lord. What is it, Count Axia? Lycros asked, curious at the interruption. It seems we have company. 3 lords of the court, Arlen replied, motioning the young steward away. Aprician, Mitnar, and Firestar. Alterian is just across the river. What in the world is Aprician in need of passage on a riverboat for? Lycros wondered aloud. An excellent question. He is on deck 3 in the grand parlor suite. I would not presume, as a mere count, to intrude upon his presence. But if you would be so good as to send my regards along, he might tell you, if the matter is not of a privy nature, Arlen said, and saw Lycros chuckle. Arlen's ears were beginning to fail him these days, though he was only about 90, assuming he still kept the years straight. Nosy as ever, old fellow, nosy as ever. It may get you into trouble one day, you know, Lycos said with an edge of humor to his tone. Ah, how's an old stallion like me to get his thrills, when all he can do any more is build boats or sit in a harbor master's station and ward off the damp from his bones? A little danger now and again never hurt a stallion, Arlen replied, and got a hearty guffaw and a back slap from Lycos. You're as wily as ever, old fellow. I may drop in on the others, however, and see what they are up to, just to find out for myself. It does pique my curiosity, Lycros said, chuckling, this time loud enough to be heard. With that, Lycros moved off from the curving bank of windows overlooking the river 3 decks below. Above them, the captain would be making final preparations for casting off from the quayside. A tender would pull them clear of the pier before casting them into the current. With any fortune, Arlen would hear the machinery engage and the paddle wheels would start moving them quickly downstream. In 4 days, they would make landfall in Malbart County, Olarusny district, the furthest south one could go on the west bank of the Renama River. Arlen just hoped the snow didn't ruin plans. Thankfully, the river was not icing up as badly as it usually did this time of year. They were able to get a few more trips in, and it was an added sweetness that his newest creation would be able to make the journey as well. What of his being aboard? Aprician asked, looking out through the windows overlooking the river. Around the suite, his servants bustled, unpacking his belongings for the trip. Be mindful what you say, Lycros replied calmly. He plays at deafness, but I would venture his ears are far keener than he would admit. I am also aware of his loyalties and where they lie regarding this throne. Arlon is not a difficulty, Patrician said with a trace of irritation to his tone. A horrendous clanking noise rose from below, shaking the frame of the vessel. Then several crystal fixtures flared to life, growing steadily brighter. Stewards moved quickly, extinguishing the wall-mounted oil lamps as the new lights took over. The vessel lurched, then began to gather speed. Aprician could feel the vibration in the deck beneath his feet. The old fellow's gone and done it, Lycros said, lost in admiration. He's brought electric lights and motorized propulsion to the river. He was telling me about it earlier. The Namuks operate a treadmill-like machine. The machine operates a series of shafts and planks feeding into a generating turbine. The turbine generates electricity, stored in batteries and discharged to power the ship and paddle wheels. The Namex charge the batteries throughout the morning. We will have hot and cold running water, fresh meals, full laundry, and arrive in Malbark a day early. And the Namex need only a brisk trot to manage it. This is Arlen for you, always tinkering and innovating. Incidentally, do you have any idea what Java is calling this meeting for? Firestar's been grumbling ever since we left the courthouse this afternoon. I have no idea. My cousin refuses to confide in me on this occasion. I think sometimes he is losing his reason, Lycros replied and shook his head slowly. Your mutual cousin Mitnar thinks the same. Lycros cut in on a Frisian. Do not mistake me. I would not cross Java for the world. But he does not always make sensible decisions. He has grown secretive. I cannot read him anymore. But in the last few years, Lycos broke off with a shake of his head. Think you he suspects family treason? Trician dreaded the thought himself. He was far more distantly related to Java, likely more expendable in his eyes if he suspected betrayal. Not even the clown could help us if he does. Lycros was horrified at the thought. We're dead stallions walking if this is what he suspects, and we are heading straight for his lair. What do you recommend? Acrisian asked bluntly. What could I recommend? You have already given him use of your man Ericor. We could never outrun Ericor's reach, not with what he knows of us. All Ericor would have to do is walk into the palace and place a sheaf of documents before the king. We would be found, arrested, tried, and executed. If King Taurus didn't have that infernal left hand of the king do the work for him, Lycros replied at length. Safe travels.